The storm had been building since afternoon. By 9 o'clock, the rain was hitting the windows of Hartley House in sheets, and the old oak trees in the grounds were bending in the wind. It was the kind of night that made the hotel feel very far from anywhere. James had been working the night shift at the front desk for 3 years. He knew every inch of Hartley House, or so he thought. It started with the key. At 9:30, he was tidying the key cabinet behind the desk, something he did every quiet evening when he found it. It was hanging on a hook at the very back of the cabinet, behind the others, almost hidden. A large, old-fashioned brass key, heavy and cold, with a tag attached that said simply 13. James looked at it for a long time. Hartley House had 12 rooms. He knew this. The room numbers went from 1 to 12, and that was all. He had checked guests into every one of them. He had cleaned them, repaired them, locked and unlocked them hundreds of times. There was no room 13. He checked the hotel plan on the wall behind the desk. 12 rooms. He counted them. 12. He looked at the key again. It must have been there for years, he thought, hidden behind the others. Someone must have put it there deliberately. But who? And why? He thought about the layout of the hotel. He knew the ground floor well. The entrance hall, the dining room, the library, the kitchen. He knew the first floor. Rooms 1 to 7 along the corridor. He knew the second floor. Rooms 8 to 12. But there was something. There had always been something that slightly bothered him about the second floor corridor. It was longer than it should have been. He had always assumed it was just the angle, the old building settling. But now he thought about it differently. The corridor on the second floor might be longer than the rooms accounted for. There could be a space at the end that did not appear on the plan. Someone must have sealed it off at some point, or hidden it. He picked up a torch from under the desk. He went upstairs. At the end of the second floor corridor, past room 12, there was a large oak panel on the wall. James had walked past it hundreds of times. He had always assumed it was decorative, the kind of original Victorian feature that old houses kept. He had never looked at it properly. He looked at it now. He ran his fingers along the edge of the panel, and there, almost invisible, was a keyhole. Small, brass, set into the wood so neatly that you would never see it unless you were looking. James's heart was beating quickly now. He put the key in the lock. It turned smoothly. The panel swung open. Behind it was a room. It was small, barely larger than a generous sitting room, but it was beautiful. There was a fireplace with blue and white tiles, a window, a real window, that must have looked out onto the inner courtyard, hidden from the outside by the angle of the building. A writing desk with a green leather surface, 2 armchairs facing each other, a bookshelf along one wall filled with old volumes. And on the desk, a single candle, recently burned down, and a glass with a small amount of brandy still in it. Someone had been in here, recently, very recently. James stood in the doorway and tried to think clearly. Someone must have known about this room. Not many people, perhaps no one currently on the staff, but someone. They must have had a copy of the key or known where the original was hidden. They could have been coming here for months. They might have been coming here for years. He looked at the glass of brandy. It can't have been here long. The brandy had not evaporated. Whoever had been sitting in this room had been here within the last few hours. He looked around more carefully. On the bookshelf, he found a small leather notebook. Inside was a list of dates going back 40 years. Next to each date, a single initial. H. He turned to the most recent entry, tonight's date. James looked around the room one last time before leaving. On the mantelpiece above the fireplace, half hidden behind a small clock, was a photograph in a silver frame. Two people, a man and a woman, young, laughing, standing outside Hartley House in what looked like the 1960s. James looked at the man's face for a long time. He went back downstairs and opened the oldest guest register he could find. A leather-bound book from 1961 at the back of the filing cabinet, the first page. He turned to the inside cover of the register. There was a handwritten note in faded ink. Hartley House opened April 1961. Built by Harold and Eleanor Hartley. The private sitting room on the second floor is reserved for the family's personal use. Please ensure it is always kept ready. James read it twice. So they had built the hotel. They had fallen in love with this place so much that they had made it their life's work. And the room upstairs, the beautiful hidden room with the fireplace and the two chairs and the view of the courtyard, had been theirs all along. He closed the register slowly. He understood now. He went back upstairs and locked the panel carefully. He put the key back in its place at the back of the cabinet. Then he made himself a cup of tea and sat down behind the desk. He sat quietly until the storm passed. When his colleague arrived for the morning shift, James said nothing about the key or the room or the photograph. Some things you find at Hartley House, he decided, are meant to stay there. In this story, James uses modal verbs for deduction to work out what has happened. Modal verbs for deduction help us say how certain we are about something in the past. There are three main ones. Must have, when we are almost certain something happened. Might have or could have, when we think something was possible, but we are not sure. Can't have, when we are almost certain something did not happen. Let us look at how James uses them. When James finds the key, he thinks, the key must have been there for years. He is almost certain. The key is old and worn. It could not have appeared recently. He also thinks someone must have put it there deliberately. Again, he is almost certain. Keys do not hide themselves. When he thinks about the secret room, he says, they could have been coming here for months. They might have been coming here for years. He is not sure how long, so he uses could have and might have. And when he looks at the brandy glass, he thinks, it can't have been here long. The brandy had not evaporated, so he is almost certain it was left very recently. Now let us practice. Pause the video and answer these questions.